friends, learners on the interwebs. I'm Rachael Blaske.
And I'm Julie Ahern.
And today's topic is logistics 101. And Julie and I, veterans of the board game industry, will chat over a good cup of coffee while we discuss this topic that we feel is an important part of running a board game company. And all the while discussing your comments and questions in the chat because you're invited.
This episode is sponsored by Arcane Wonders, publishers of the Dice Tower Essentials line of games, including Onitama, Smartphones Inc., Aquatica, Sherlock 13, which is a light deduction game for 2 to 4 players where anyone could have committed the crimes. Available at your friendly local game store or wherever you buy games.
Oh, this is going to be a good one. All right. And just so you guys know, and I know you do, that we love it when you share our stream. And we would appreciate that. And we're going to give you time to do that right now. Oh, it's going to be a morning, guys. We're in a mood. So this is going to be a lot of fun. And we have our news today, Miss Julie.
Yeah, so hiring spree. So both CGE and AEG are hiring for specific roles, positions. If that's something you're interested in, or you know somebody who will be interested in it, let them know now because they are closing those applications pretty soon. But we wanted to give a heads up that is happening. So make sure that if that's something that you feel passionate about, either content creator or graphic artist, or you know someone who is, let them know.
Yes, for real. And you can always go to the tabletop game jobs that Ross runs on the Facebook group. He always keeps all of that up to date. Well, so if you're ever looking for a way to get into the industry,
there you go.
So, as always, click on the 3 dots in the upper right-hand corner, and you can choose to be notified every time we go live. And we also have the link to our YouTube account in the description box below, so you can subscribe and find our archive shows after streaming. All right. This is going to be an interesting one because this is one that we're doing for first timers. This is the 101 level of logistics. So if you're just now getting into this and you haven't had a lot of experience, then this is for you. And if you are above that, I cannot wait to have all of your advice in the chat because this is going to be a really, really interesting topic to kind of dive into. And next week, we're going to have our experts. Allison from QML is going to be here to answer all the deep questions. And but
knowing the basics is important.
Yes,
you gotta walk before you can run.
Yes.
So this is our covering what you should be thinking about asking experts before you start doing the more deep dive of factoring in. So we're gonna go high and over a lot of topics. But of course, if you guys have questions or thoughts, please chime in.
Yes, and definitely these are the questions you should be asking any kind of provider that you're going to be talking to, and they'll be so surprised that you know all these little ins and outs already.
But logistics is also, for most publishers, for most small business owners, one of the most challenging aspects of being a business owner because you're so focused on your product, and logistics is a service that is instrumental to getting your product out into gamers' hands. But it's not the one that it's the one that's also the most often complained about. Let's be honest. So making sure that you're aware of the information, and making the best choices so that even when you get those frustrations from your clientele, you can answer the questions effectively, or at the very least know that if it wasn't your best choice, you can make a more informed choice going forward is all very important.
And I definitely feel like this is the area that creators can have the most frustration because this is totally out of your control. There is nothing you can do after you have chosen the things, put everything in place.
And we business owners, we're not control freaks at all. We're
No,
so
no, no.
chill about this.
So, okay. Well, now what is logistics? Logistics is not just going straight from, it's not one big chunk. It can be. You can have a provider that specializes in every single piece, but you also can drill down into the little in between places. So like logistics is getting from the factory to the dock across, and then from the boat to the dock, and then going to the warehouse, and then from the warehouse getting it out to your customers. So there's lots of little pieces that are all individual but can work in it as a unit. So you've got some acronyms. I know we talked about this.
Well, let's break that down just a little bit more, so that
go ahead.
For the first timer at least.
Right.
So your game is then being manufactured. From the manufacturing, you have to figure out how to get it to port. Mm-hmm. So whether that's by truck, by freight, by train, how is it getting physically from there? How is it broken up before it gets there? What pallets to go to different locations around the world? Right. Then once you get to the port, you're putting them on freight shipments, and those, we all saw the Suez Canal. We know what the freight shipped with the containers looks like.
Yeah.
And how big they are. Thanks, friends. Thanks for all the memes. But from there, going to other countries. And of course, they're not always going to land simultaneously, because right now, especially this year, there has been a backlog both at ports in, say, China, and receiving them in other countries because of the shipping container, which we've been talking about for months now. So that's a pretty well-established fact that it can sit at the port that it's waiting at for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then whatever ship it's getting onto, the freight shipment, will go at different times, so they don't all land at the same time. Right. Then once they do, getting it off and waiting their turn, which again is taking a lot of time right now. Once they've landed and gone through customs, then getting on another truck or train to go to the warehouse where you are storing them, and then your shipping partner, or you yourself, if you are handling all of the shipping for your company internally, going out to retailers or directly to customers. Lots of little pieces.
Yes, exactly. And so what you can do is drill down and work at those granular levels with different providers, or you can contract with a firm that is handling it all.
And for that, asking your manufacturer if they handle pieces of it, like getting it to port, versus your logistics partner, is actually a good thing, because you can at least, again, shop, price comparison. Maybe one does it better than the other. Maybe one costs more, but maybe one's more effective at getting it on a boat, especially right now. Maybe your manufacturer has a better inside track at that port than your shipping partner who's here in the United States, if you're manufacturing out of country. Right. Things like that are important to factor in.
And during Manufacturing 101, we kind of talked about Incoterms and how those factor into your quote process. Well, now here is where they are coming into play, because each of the Incoterms, there are 11. I'm not going to just explain them all, and there's a link in the description box.
Know your acronyms, friends.
Exactly. What does it mean? And then ask those questions. FOB means that you're getting it to the boat, so that way your manufacturer is handling that piece. Then you've got DDP, which is everything, and including delivery with your duties prepaid. So there is a lot of different ways to do that. And if you are a seasoned veteran of the industry, I would love for you guys to drop in the chat, when you order your product, how do you usually have it delivered for your company? Do you do EXW? Which means it's just sitting at the factory and you handle it from there? Or do you have it sent all the way over so you don't have to deal with it? Like how do you guys do that specifically?
Yeah.
And those fees.
And then there are the fees. Yes. So much fun.
Right?
It's like shopping. It's like shopping. Think of it as shopping. We all like to shop, right?
Mhm.
So in addition to making sure that you are budgeting for all of those pieces of the shipping, you're also budgeting for the customs or VAT taxes that are uh, also a big topic and very, how do we say it, volatile right now.
Right. Right.
So with Brexit happening, you now have separate VAT charges for Europe and the UK. Whereas once you could ship to either one or the other and it was covering all of them, and you now have to factor that maybe you are paying for an extra. What is the cost of two freights going to
Mhm.
two separate locations? Or are you still going to one location, but you know that you're going to have to pay the VAT tax for the other country or countries, depending on where you're going. And doing that means you're also filing for your VAT tax forms,
Mhm.
which having successfully completed the process recently so that we can sell games in the UK, because you have to have a VAT tax form and number to do that. For Kickstarter, there's still some wiggle room, although that's starting to shrink as well. You can't sell them outright unless you have that. And filing for that has been a delight of paperwork.
A delight.
I could probably build a little fort in my an office fort of paperwork of what we had to fill out. And the
It was lovely.
questions were not clear. And then so make
What?
sure there are a number of people, your logistics partner can help you with that too, even if it's referencing saying, well, we're still new to this too, because everybody's new to it. But if you're working with somebody in the UK who's an accountant or a lawyer who handles this specifically, they're going to be the most well above our understanding of what's happening. And I strongly recommend you work with someone who can handle it for you, unless you have a full-time accountant who also knows international tax laws on your staff,
Woo.
which some bigger companies can and do have, but a smaller business,
Yep. First
find
time
yourself an
creative.
expert. They will, and they will break it down. There's a couple different ones we talked, again, we shopped around for that as well, and we ended up going with a firm that has us pay quarterly for the VAT tax, but also to them baked in quarterly, because our numbers could fluctuate based on the product that we had at the time. And we liked that better than the, excuse me,
Bless you.
I'm so sorry. Uh,
I like that we're talking about the EU and I'm starting to default to like, oh, and
yeah.
go ahead. Yes.
Versus one that was annual, because a lot of our stuff is Kickstarter based. And so our numbers move drastically up and down based on that. So we actually decided to go with the every 3 months option, which some people might not want to be bothered. So those are questions you're going to need to ask for that. But
And then when you were we were talking about the fees, and now before we get further, I wanted to hear more about custom stuff.
right. So clearing customs is also can be its own special, in
Joy.
addition to challenge, because they're looking to make sure all your paperwork is correct. If they find any discrepancies in your paperwork, they can pull your product and it goes into port jail.
Purgatory.
It goes into purgatory.
Yes.
And it just sits there in a warehouse on the dock, way more open to the elements, where it can
Bad,
take on
bad.
salt water and melt, and bake, and no sort of climate control for an undetermined amount of time. Or let's say you have a very large game that's full of miniatures, and they are concerned that all that plastic that they're seeing when they're scanning things might be a bomb, and they decide to hold your product for an indeterminate amount of
Explosives.
time, right? And and you have to voluntarily offer to have it inspected to let it go through, which costs you a certain amount of money, but then you have to go through the paperwork to actually pay for this voluntary inspection to have your product released.
Oh my
And if
goodness.
you don't have, say, a bond set in place or insurance that has that
Wait, wait,
contingency baked in, hold on, not there yet. Not there
wait.
yet. Yeah,
You
okay.
said the word. Okay,
I
go
know,
ahead.
but wait, because let me finish this thought.
Yes.
Then it takes extra time to go through the paperwork to pay for the voluntary inspection, and then the time it takes for them to get around to your product for the inspection, and then it's released, and then your product has been sitting there for several months. This has never happened, and I'm not speaking at all from personal experience whatsoever.
Wait. So, are you saying that insurance is an important part of the logistics process, or should I skip it?
No. Insurance. Is insurance important?
What? Wait, what did
Is insurance
this doesn't happen, right? Right?
never? It happened recently to
Okay.
another Kickstarter. We talked about it in the news, so
Yes.
that can happen. But let's. I mean, we're getting a little goofy about this because if you don't laugh, sometimes you might cry.
Exactly.
So
This
to
is
be prepared for something, let's talk really quick about insurance as well, because insurance is another factor.
Mhm.
Anybody in the United States, and I'm sure worldwide, should know that insurance, like shipping, isn't a one size fits all. You have to think about where is it being insured and for what things is it being insured against. So, are you talking about manufacturing insurance? Does your manufacturer insure things? It's a question worth asking. Chances are they have their own to help themselves. So, if it's being manufactured and something happens, like the chipboard in your boxes gets contaminated and then is covered in mold and you have to replace all the folklore, again, never happened.
Never happened to you. Nope.
Um, then their insurance, if it was happening in the manufacturing process, can help offset those costs. If it's on a boat, you have a finite number of things that so if you're insuring it for the actual freight shipping, there's a finite number of things you're insuring it for at that point. You're not
Right.
insuring it for a tornado. You're insuring it for specifically if it falls into the ocean or water damage, like some pretty specific things.
Right. If you're doing it specifically, then you're not going, it makes it financially viable. You can't get a blanket policy and be able to afford all the things.
Mm-hmm. Are you insuring it at your shipping hubs in their warehouse? Because those warehouses, those shipping partners are insured for their warehouse, not for your games. Can they include it? Yes, they can. The cost is incredibly high. And at
Mhm.
that point, you have to, again, being specific. Is it flood damage? Is it fire damage? Is it a tornado or a hurricane? Because that makes it a much more broad thing.
Mhm.
So at that point, if you're trying to insure it at a warehouse, it's going to cost probably more than the profit you're going to have for the game. And if it's not, if whatever may happen to your product is not covered by your insurance policy, it doesn't matter. So at that point, you're weighing offsetting the costs, the risk reward, and also how long is the game going to be there? How long does that policy last? Or is this a game that's been out for many years and maybe isn't moving as quickly, and now you're paying even more than the profit you're making because it's been sitting there for so long? These are all factors. So I'm not going to give you advice on what to insure
Right.
because I'm not
These are questions
right.
that you should
But
be asking.
they are absolutely questions you should be asking and trying to talk about a way that the most effective way to insure your things. Stefan has brought up a very helpful tip
Yes, exactly. And
that you can get insurance that protects your inventory from the departure from the factory all the way up to the time you sell it at your warehouse. Correct. I will say that we have this insurance. Once it gets to the warehouse, we have opted not to, not from lack of, and one of my business partners, his life partner is an insurance claims adjuster.
Mm-hmm.
She and I have had in-depth conversations about this, pros and cons, and she is a very much a pro-insurance person, obviously,
Right.
and we have had the back and forth of what is the benefit, what are the benefits and what aren't. You need to have those conversations with somebody who's an expert as well and make that determination for your own. We do not, and and sometimes that can be hard, and because if you have a product that's sitting in a warehouse and something happens, that warehouse is insured, but your product is not. Just know that.
Yeah. So obviously we talk a lot about how these are questions you should be asking your firms, that we are not experts in this area, but who have you used? Because a lot of this is like referral based. Like we always tell you to do your homework, talk to other people. Who have you used? What was your experience, pros and cons of different places? So who have you used specifically and have experience with?
So when we were new, we worked with Ship Naked.
Mm-hmm.
They work with a lot of new publishers, and we chose to work with them because they are based out of Manchester, New Hampshire, and our company is in Massachusetts. So it was an hour drive to the warehouse
To check your stuff.
to check our stuff. There were a lot of, it was problematic
Okay.
using them, but I also, it being new, it was also something that being informed about what to do in that process, we knew that we could at least be close to our stuff, and if we needed to run up and grab product, or the convenience of that was fairly important to us. So that's what we did.
Yeah, go ahead.
We've also done a lot of work with PSI, which behaves as a consolidator as well as a logistics. So we have worked through them before. And of course, here in the United States now, we work with QML and Quartermaster Logistics. And
they're out of Florida.
They are based out of Florida and tend to coordinate for our Kickstarters and for our web store sales. We coordinate with them to work with international partners. Currently, Games Quest for the UK and Europe, VFI in China, and most of Asia. And then we work separately with Aetherworks in Australia, and have always worked with Aetherworks for our Australian shipping separately since the beginning. I think that's it. But I've also had some, I can recommend working with Flat River, who I've also talked to about working with. And I know that D6 does a pretty good job.
Yeah, I was, and just for clarification, Ship Naked is now merged with Fun Again, right?
Correct.
And then now,
and briefly, and in Europe, we also worked with Fun Again and Happy Shops.
Okay. And then, so Fun Again Games and Ship Naked merged a couple years ago, and now are Fun Again Logistics, and I believe they have warehouses in Indy or somewhere near there.
And also
Indy or Columbus or something.
Northwest.
Yeah. And then up in Oregon. So and then you were saying
so we've used a lot of different partners, I think.
Yes. And I was going to say D6 right now is fulfilling a Kickstarter for Wise Wizard, and I talked to Tyler plenty, and he is very knowledgeable also. So
there's a lot of them out there.
Yes, absolutely.
And you can look through all of their, asking for a quote, asking for specific information. I have enjoyed working with QML because they will do a lot of legwork for me.
Nice.
I will say they have a very high percentage of games that get received that are not damaged. You pay for that though. So they're a little bit more pricey, but they also take that money and spend a lot more time making sure that your games are well packaged, very good communication, very good back and forth of getting answers if I have any questions, and I have a lot of questions. So
Right. And in the chat, there's some clarifications. Yes, the 2 warehouses for Fun and Gun are Indy and Oregon. James, he is the director of sales at Hit Point Sales, which is involved with that. And he said Ship Naked was acquired and they're not involved, but they're a client of them. So, and again, D6's warehouse is in Iowa. And I know that he's working on acquiring other ones. He wants to try and get to a point where he can do 2-day shipping like Amazon. So that way he has all these different pieces across the various shipping zones in the States. So definitely people to ask questions of, check in, and then, ask your fellow peers.
And a lot of different shipping and logistic partners offer different services. So you have to think before, what do you want? Do you want somebody who can handle a lot of international back and forth? Do you want somebody who can focus on the shipping in the country? Do you want somebody who's their online, dashboard is more user-friendly so that you can go around and mess around and not have to talk to a human to get it fixed? Or do you want that customer service where you're talking to another person and letting them handle it? These are all things that you can think about in addition to the prices.
And knowing their backgrounds and stuff like that by asking around and people that have been around longer, you can say, like you would know that Tyler was with Snakes and Lattes up in Canada, so he has a wide breadth of knowledge of Canadian shipping policies and things like that if you're trying to really establish a North American market. So lots of different things, lots of different people to ask questions of, so many things. So now, okay, earlier in the show, Dan in the comments said the subtitle of the show is international shipping financial nightmares or something to that effect. We're not trying to just, pee on your Cheerios or whatever we're doing here, but I do love a good story. So do you have any horror stories, Julie?
I mean, I kind of already shared my horror stories.
But what about like when you are going through a Kickstarter and everything is great, and then all of a sudden a pandemic happens and you can't get a container anymore?
I shared those stories. No, what was I? But we were just talking about. I had something important. It's gone now.
Oh, while you're thinking about that, Marshall has a great comment. I'm going to pop up here. If your warehouse does not have an overhead sprinkler system, your insurance will not likely not cover your product, or will do so at a rate that is much higher. If you store them in your own space, this is something I've seen come up for folks with smaller warehousing situations. So,
right. Are you warehousing yourself? Are you trying to cover your own logistics? That's something. So that's a whole other, which I cannot speak to because we do not cover our own warehouse. But there are the people who decide, the brave souls who decide they're going to have a warehouse and pay for, the people running it and have to handle a lot of the day-to-day coordination and internal sales and how to ship them to, coordinating all of that. That's a lot more. And so rightly so, if the warehouse is insured, making sure it's insured properly. And I also noticed that Glenn talked about visiting the warehouses for D6.
Very nice. So it's large.
I love visiting warehouses. I'm not going to lie. We've talked about this. I famously love going to see how different companies have their storage set up. And I've seen a full spectrum from scary murder basement looking places to incredibly modernized, updated,
wonderful,
and much more like a storage facility, like like the personal storage facilities tend to be much more modernized and updated for, what am I thinking of? Like the public storage,
right?
That you can use where you can even have climate control.
Very nice.
So
I'll tell you that, like, I do have a little bit of experience of doing both. With the Mint 10 games, we when they first came over for the Kickstarter, we had them being fulfilled by Fun Again as the Kickstarter fulfillment, and then we just left inventory there in the warehouse so that they could continue with the fulfillment of orders from the website, and we just had that kind of connected through our e-commerce. But when we were able to bring me on and do have a little bit of extra time to put into that, it was really easy for our product size to be handled in-house, because I mean, I've got one box that has 80 count in it, so I could just keep those in my garage and then send them out via bubble mailer whenever that would come in. And it was when you have multiple small products, that pick fee can kill you. Like, you lose a lot of your
Oh yeah,
profit.
that's another factor.
Yeah,
How much?
pick and pack.
Yeah, how much is it? How much more than just putting it in a box? And if you're doing, so Wise Wizard has a
Tons of
lot of
boosters. Yeah.
so many boosters, and having to, and if you're working with a logistics partner, are they handling your replacements? Because most of them don't want to do that, because
Right.
if you are a shipping warehouse, you want everything to be the order comes in. I can scan the USB number or whatever the identifying number that warehouse uses.
Mhm.
It will tell me what row, what shelf,
Yeah.
what pallet. I go over, I take it down with the forklift, I pull something out of the box, I put it in a new box, and I go. These are not, I know every game by heart. I have carefully curated and played every game in this warehouse. That's not what the people who work there are
No.
doing. They're, it's a much more automated thing. And sure, you can put in a request, hey, can you double check, because the last time things went out, it was the expansion and not the game. Can you make sure they're stored in the right place? But for pick and pack or for replacements, open up that box. There's 36 unique miniatures in there. Make sure they get the skeleton with the sword, not the skeleton with the shield.
Right.
Also, keep
Parts.
that open box so that if I need to replace anything else from it, that it is, or even if you have bins that are set up, who's setting up those bins? How are they labeled? How is that being tracked without a USB or a SKU number?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of
for
that
sure.
that
Yep.
that
And then
this happens in house, which Marshall pointed out is not usually insured, because that's in your own personal home or a local office.
Right. And then that's up to you of how you want to do that. And then you've also got the pick fees. Like, certain ones are, they're going to be a quarter per pick no matter what. Some of them will include a certain number of picks before they start adding on an extra. So if you are a large product person, then you're probably not going to be as concerned about having multiples. But if you are someone who has tons of boosters, you're like, yes, please, let's do the pick 5 first for free and then add on.
Right. So
it's
I know that
so
Wise Wizard Kickstarters are challenging because of that. I believe, what was it? The Cryptozoic game that was 2 years ago. I'm trying to remember. They had so many booster packs, and
Mhm.
it was
Oh, and think about
what was it? It was intense. I
yeah.
just remember looking at it and going, no. Every time they're like, and we're going to add another one, and you can add this separately too. And I was like, no, what are you doing? Which is why we tend to have a lot of options for when we do a folklore campaign and we do have a lot of accessories, not nearly to that extent, but we also do a lot of prepackaged pledge tiers, and those are pre-boxed in China. Because it's cheaper, and also, so you're just buying a bundle, and the bundle is already prepackaged and pre-boxed, and therefore when they get to the United States, they can take the box out of the bigger box and put a shipping label on it and send it back out, which is another way to mitigate that particular cost.
It's just such it's not a one size fits all. It is incredibly customized. It is incredibly flexible. You just have to ask lots of questions, figure out what you want, and then push for it. So
yeah. I remembered what I was going to say.
Yes, my dear.
When you ask for all of this information and all these quotes, and are making your choices and planning your Kickstarter per se, remember that your shipping quotes are based on this year.
Yes.
And your Kickstarter is probably not going to go, or even if you're in manufacturing, depending on how long you're where you are in the year even, might not go out until next year. And those shipping prices are going to be different.
And weren't you saying that it doesn't necessarily go by the calendar year, but by
Correct.
Chinese New Year?
Correct. A lot of the adjustments in China tend to be by Chinese New Year, and that tends to inform the rest of the world's shipping. So you also have to be cognizant of that. But cautionary tale, I have seen, and I'm sure a lot of people watching have seen, a Kickstarter who is, I mean, stop me if you haven't heard this, a Kickstarter who does the, well, we're going to charge $10 more for the game, but the shipping is included. So, and all the backers go, yay!
It's included. I don't have to think.
It's right, which means that they have already agreed that they are subsidizing part of what they're making into shipping.
Right.
Because $10 shipping doesn't cover all of shipping. And they're like, well, that's $2 extra per game because it's $12 to ship right now. That's fine. And then it takes a year and a half to ship, and it's actually $16 to ship across several thousand people.
Right.
And suddenly they can't, and they're already losing money before they've even started. So
the stuff of nightmares.
You have to think, again, I'm channeling Julie Ahern. What's your 1, 5, 10 year plan? What's your shipping's 1, 5, 10 year plan, friends?
Oh my God.
When is it shipping? How much more is that going to be? What are the trends? What percentage has it increased over the last couple of years? Please plan for that. Do yourself the favor. Don't plan for this year's shipping unless you know for sure that it's shipping this year. And you never know for sure. You never know for sure. Because have you seen what's been happening?
Wait, what? This is so.
Did you see the Suez Canal?
What?
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
That's the best.
Yeah. So yes.
All right.
When you get those pressure from the Kickstarter backers, as Glenn says, why don't you guys offer free freight? Everyone else does. When you read this, stand firm, friends.
Oh my goodness.
Don't cave into that. You want to keep your business. Or maybe you don't. Maybe this was just a passion project for funsies. If it is, okay.
All right, then.
Don't mortgage your home.
Yeah. Didn't we talk about that in a different place? Oh, yeah. Okay. So anyways. All right. I'm depressed enough now. So I want to know fun, happy things. So what are you doing this week, Julie?
I'm wrapping up.
Yes. What's your top tip?
What's my top tip? I just gave it. Well, I already gave it. Plan ahead. Plan ahead. Plan ahead. Plan ahead. Plan ahead. Don't think in terms of this year. Think in terms of when the project is done.
And then mine is do your homework. Ask people, ask your peers, find out who does what and when and how long did they do it and what's their individual specialties. And you can only find those things out by asking people.
And once you've done your homework, know which ones are the most important to you.
Yep. All right. So now I want to hear about, I'm going to go ahead and put this up here because you have fun stuff always.
Oh, we're finishing 2 pledge managers. They're wrapping up. We're done. So we're working on the logistics, friends. Bears is, I've got the off the line manufacturing copy here that I'm signing off on, and then Lost Ones I signed off on it. It's being manufactured, so the pledge managers are wrapping up very soon for Lost Ones. It has closed for Barbarians, and then I've been working on the bylaws rewrites for the Gamma Trade Organization because we're working on those. So we worked on writing them. It took about 5 months. We have now met with a legal advisor to let us know if everything that we put in it is actually legally feasible and any factors that we hadn't thought. Then we met with the board and had them look at it. And I'm not going to lie, a lot of eyes glazed over. which is fair. I understand. I had to help write the whole thing. I get it. But stuck with me. And now, actually, right after this, round 2 with the lawyer for the revisions we made to it based on her recommendations and what the board said to make sure that everything we changed actually is copacetic. And then the world.
Then it comes up for vote and all the things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. That sounds mind-numbing, and I'm glad that you're on top of it. Because I couldn't do it, and I love that you have the skill set to do it.
Listen, logistics, bylaws. I live a very exciting life.
Your Saturday nights are awesome. All right, cool. So I am more predictable, actually. I even am talking about the same thing as last week because I had so much fun with it. Mm-hmm. So we've been doing this. I've been doing this Clubhouse networking room called Let's Talk Tabletop. And I probably should have had it ready and in the description box, but I'll try and put it up on my personal profile later today. It is super fun in that you go on, and again, iOS users, I have a little room that I do, and I bring people in and just ask about their week. I ask about what they do, who they work for, and then what they are working on currently, what they've done in the past, and what your goal is for this next week. And done it twice now, and I keep good notes. So I drive everybody crazy when they come back, and I'm like, so how did your playtesting go? And did you get your shipments out, James? And all these people. Because I care. I'm really interested in what's going on with everybody's life. So I'm having a blast meeting new people. I've met different designers, different providers in the industry, people in the toy industry that have come through. I love the how Clubhouse is a very melded network of people from a lot of different industries that take this as an opportunity to learn about other industries. And that's really exciting to me. Now, this beautiful picture below my face here, I have been doing some brand work with the consulting piece. And one of my clients is a postpartum doula. And I had the opportunity to do a brand photography lifestyle shoot. And it was so much fun. She basically takes care of parents after they have a baby. And
they were some really adorable pictures.
Oh, it's so cute. This little, I pretty much just went along to these client visits and as a fly on the wall and just took pictures of her doing her job. And it was beautiful. Like I fell in love with the entire process of I've been having a lot of fun putting together her brand and how she can be represented and building out her website and I'm just having a blast. And so I just wanted to show you one of my favorite pictures from this week of this cute little couple with their very first baby. And she's just kind of explaining how things, like right there, she had just taught them how to swaddle and just makes my day. I love it. So that is what I had.
Nice.
So lots of things.
That's what we did. What's happening next week?
Oh, next week, we actually get the real deal.
Right.
We get 201.
So we talked about the broad strokes. Next week, you come with your questions for more detailed information. And Miss Allison, who's been working at QML for quite a while now, is a consummate professional and extremely knowledgeable, will be able to answer them better than and give you hope after our horror stories of how to handle things.
She will reassure you and we will just hush. But yes, all of you seasoned veterans, this is your chance to ask all the questions and you know, she will have all of the answers.
So thank you all so much for hanging out with us today. This awesome session was brought to you by XYZ Game Labs. So once you're done here, go see all the cool things they're doing.
And you can follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, and YouTube and Pinterest. And all of the links are in the description box below.
Have a great Friday, guys. And remember, next week, you're
Invited.
invited.